Mm, it's big. All right. Okay. Hello. What the heck?
Okay, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, you'll see me shortly, hopefully. Let's see. There I are. Oh, there you can get even fancy. Look at that.
Oh, look at that. Look at that. Okay. So TMH, is that John Rogg?
No, that's probably Methodist Hospital. It's probably
Methodist.
either
Yeah.
Pam or
Pam
Amy.
or Amy, yeah.
It says connecting to audio. Jonathan, can you hear us?
I can hear you guys just fine.
Excellent. We hear you too.
Perfect. I like your background with the Aurora Borealis.
Yeah, there you go. It's actually COVID virus particles.
Oh, is it an alien virus?
Yes.
Made in China.
Made in China, right?
How you guys doing?
Hell, hanging in there. How about you?
Doing well.
Can't complain.
Okay, whoever's going from Methodist, either Pam or Amy, we still don't have your audio. You may want to try to reboot or something if you can hear us. Jordan, why don't you check your audio? Talk to us a little bit.
Hi, everyone. How are you?
Great. We are fine. We can hear you.
Very good. Very good.
Such a learned man. Look at that. Where are you, in the Library of Congress? You're muted still, Jonathan. Jordan.
I've been trying to experiment with backgrounds, so I don't
There you
know.
go.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
I
Gotta
also
be
have
virtual.
keys here.
Oh, yeah.
Let me see. Oh, it's stopped. Okay. Well, can I choose just not to have one? There you go. All right.
Well, that's a weird virtual background.
Right. It looks so plain.
It's John Oliver's White Void.
Look at that coronavirus mustache. I like
There you
that. I like that.
What is that right behind you, Dr. Bungo? Move your head a little bit. Oh, it's just your head.
It's
Okay.
just a shadow. It's just,
Okay.
yeah, it's the virtual background that's not.
I was going to say the weather's been so crazy. Maybe that's right outside your window in Houston.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Dr. Volker.
Okay, so I think we got a good connection now with whomever was calling in from Methodist. Do you want to try your voice check, do a voice check?
Dr. Ayati.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Unmute myself. How are you guys doing today?
Doing well. Oh, there we go.
Oh,
Hi, this is Pam.
Hi,
great,
Pam.
Pam. Hi.
I'm glad you could join us. I know you're busy.
Hi,
The
Pam.
Hello there.
How are you doing?
Very good. Very good. And our intern's doing very well too. So thank you.
Great.
Oh,
I'm getting a flood of requests for interns these days. It's amazing.
Oh, that's awesome.
Things are opening up.
that's good. It's a good sign. The only person that I don't think will be able to join us that told me was name Ellis Wad.
Okay.
All right, then.
Here and accounted for.
I like that.
You're muted. There you go.
I just
present.
walked in. I was in the Clear Lake campus. Just walked in.
You're not too late.
Sent.
Good.
Okay.
Joanne, are we expecting Bill Small, you know?
He didn't say he wouldn't. I just got a text from Lee. He wants me to text him the meeting information. So I'm going to do that.
Okay. So that would be Lee, Bill, and Amy. I don't know whether Alex will be joining us or not, since that was her last session.
I doubt it.
And did I miss anybody? So while Joanne is texting to see if we can get anybody else on, did everybody get the evaluation form that Joanne included with the meeting invite? That was the
Yeah.
program participant feedback?
Yeah.
Yes, we
got it.
did.
Yes.
Yeah, good. So congratulations to everyone, you know, really superb feedbacks. And then probably a few weeks ago or a month ago, I'm losing track of time, we also sent out, I don't know if we distributed it to everybody or not, but the medical student feedback from the February course. I don't know if we,
I don't think I sent that out to
Okay.
everybody.
that's
My
fine.
apologies. I could
It
have.
was, no. It was good. And they
It was
didn't, they
excellent.
weren't as specific as this group anyway, so they had more general comments. I did have to laugh though, because, you know, this was the composite medical student feedback that they're required to put in. And, you know, we had like, you know, 90% or something absolutely positive feedback, you know, 4s and 5s on the Likert scale. And then there was one student who had like a 1 for everything. I mean, you know, the classic, you can't please all the people, you know, all the time. This person obviously was having a bad day. So,
Or they were just confused and had the 5 switch for a 1.
yeah.
That's happened before too.
We
Yes.
have patients do that too.
Yep. Well, hello, Lee. Glad you could join us.
Lee, you're on mute. If you could just test your audio so we make sure we can hear you if we need to, or if you want to.
There we go. Is that better?
Much.
Hello, Lee.
Yes. Good morning. Yeah, I was on the road up doing a week of military duty and did not have the contact information handy. So Joanne, thank you for sending it to me. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I'm afraid to even ask how your last few weeks have gone since you're in Lake Charles.
Hot and sweaty.
Oof.
Yeah, we had no water for 3 weeks. That includes no flushable toilets, no showers, no running water of any kind. So fortunately, I have a friend in Beaumont, and he very generously allowed me to go to his house every couple of nights and take a real shower and sleep in air conditioning for one night. So
Now, was that at the hospital or at your home that you didn't have water?
the entire city had no water.
Oh, my goodness.
Entire city.
I
had
didn't
no
realize
water.
that.
We had to close our hospitals completely. All of the hospitals went on divert. We left the ERs open, and Christus, I don't know what Memorial did. I was too busy with my own issues, but Christus brought in 2 massive water tanks, like 20,000 gallon water tanks that they put right in front of the hospital, and tapped into the main water system to allow the ER to have at least nominal water. But, you know, when you can't, in the era of COVID, when you cannot wash hands, you really cannot have safely operating hospitals. So we moved all of our patients outside of the city.
Wow. I can't even imagine. Okay. Have you guys gotten back
we
to
were
some?
fortunate. We didn't have 5 feet of water in our homes and in our hospital, which was the original forecast. So we actually ended up more fortunate than it could have been. But we have 90% of the structures in the city are damaged and or have roof damage. We still have 40% of the city that does not have electricity 1 month after the storm.
My goodness. How about the hospital? Is it?
Hospitals are back up.
Okay.
We got all 3 of our main hospitals are fully up on electric and water as of Monday of this week. The main limitation for the city now is going to be workers. We have roughly 20% of the homes in the city are not fit for habitation, and so people can't move back. And without a place to live, we're all stuck without workers.
My goodness.
So it has been, it's been a challenge, but you know, again, we were much more fortunate than it could have been. We had no deaths, at least no deaths directly attributable to the storm. Interestingly, we've had 6 fatalities post-storm due to people running generators in their homes and dying due to carbon monoxide poisoning.
Yeah, I saw that. That's sad.
It is very sad. I mean, a lot of us would say common sense, but a lot of people are not exposed to those kinds of thoughts growing up. And, you know, you don't use a generator until it's an emergency, and then you just don't think about it. A lot of folks don't have any concept of carbon monoxide as a byproduct of an internal combustion engine.
I grew up in an environment where electricity is it's the rarity, and all that you've described is things that I've lived. No electricity, no running water. It's hard. No flushable toilet water for months on end. Yeah, so I can totally relate to. And people having generators. I mean, that's all everybody has in the country I grew up, and people die out with that stuff.
Yes. You know, fortunately, we got generators on soon enough that we didn't have any fatalities due to heat stroke. But if it had lasted much longer, we might have had that. We were fortunate. Again, could have been much worse. You know, I know growing up, for a while, I was involved in volunteer things where we didn't have electricity or water, but A, you're used to it, so your expectations are different. Two, you're younger and you're much more flexible, tolerant of those issues. And I guess the main thing is that when society knows that you don't have water and electric there in the local community, you build your homes or your lifestyle around not having it. For instance, you have windows that can open for breezes and you have screens to keep out insects. My building's windows will not open. We have no opening windows, so there's no way to get any kind of cross current or breeze. And there is no, I guess, proximity to any kind of latrines that, where you could dig a latrine. So, what we of course have instead is the porta potties. But when there's trees or power lines across every road, it's hard to get porta potties delivered or serviced. So, yes, my point is, when I was younger, it did not seem as dramatic or as imposing, as much of an imposition as now. There's also a big difference in being 58 and 18. All right, I have monopolized enough of the conversation.
Well, and
We get to business now.
it's fallen out of the news very quickly too. The storm went
Yes.
by, and by the time the next day came around, it wasn't news anymore.
Right.
So
Right. Well, we had
not even here
Sally
in Houston.
hitting Pensacola a week or two later, and then that became the next big story. And of course, it's election season, so we have all that going on.
Right. All right. Well, Dr. Bungo, did you want to kind of get us started?
Okay, well, first of all, for those who came on a little late, with this invite to this meeting, we distributed the feedbacks, and I was proud of the learners in this too. They, even after spending 4 weeks in the course, they and very easily could have just clicked the sign off button. They provided a lot of good feedback. Joanne distributed those. You can see people took time to, actually write paragraphs worth of information at some point, which was really nice. And of course, the bottom line is it's a program that's still being exceedingly well received. I think at this point in time, it's still tailored towards the resident and the student. When I say tailored, I mean the time course delivery that we're doing, the daytime delivery, the 6 hours a day for 5 days a week, 4 weeks straight. The attending physicians that have participated both in May and in August have found it a bit daunting to keep up with that kind of schedule. So once again, we'll see how things go. Maybe we'll reinitiate our discussions with Memorial Hermann, the discussions that COVID kind of turned off, and maybe Joanne, you can update us a little bit. I don't know if you sent the email or not, to see whether an evening course for practicing physicians or faculty physicians would be something that's realistic in these crazy times. The plan right now is to go ahead on schedule with our next offering, which is in February. I know there are medical students signing up for it already, requesting their elective code numbers that they need to sign up. So that's our plan. I would have to assume at this point in time, we should plan on it being 100% virtual again. And if that changes to allow us to do some or more or all in person, I think that'll be great, but I'm not holding my breath based on all the epidemiology that is out there. regarding COVID. So a couple of things that I summarized, and then I'd like to hear feedback from everybody else from comments, plus some things that maybe I'd like to see is, I think some more uniformity in our presentation would kind of dress up the entire thing. And what I mean by that is just, our presence on Blackboard to be a little bit more uniform. But having said that, our August offering was certainly, we had moved in that direction already. So it was pretty easy for people to navigate, and as the uniformity increases amongst the modules, it obviously makes it even easier for people to know where to find things and what to do stuff. I think the other comment that I took out of it is that homework was still a little daunting, especially since there were a lot of people availing themselves of this opportunity that really didn't block out a whole 4 weeks of nothing else to do. And so, when we offered them 6 hours of class time and then another 3 hours worth of homework, that became, a bit burdensome. So we may have to rethink that in some situations. I'll leave it up to you to provide the individual feedbacks on that. And sometimes the instructions on how or what to do with the homework they felt wasn't clear enough. And that may be, it seemed clear to me, but then of course, we've been doing this course for 4 years, and we all know the expectations, and we're all familiar with Blackboard, and so it seems second nature. So we'll maybe have to rethink that aspect a little bit too, in terms of writing out some better instructions for the homework. The group assignment stuff didn't work very well, and that's a kind of tough thing to do even when we do it in person, but at least when we do it in person, they can sort of go off and maybe spend a little time during the lunch hour or right before or after the course, trying to get people together offline without some kind of formal structure was a bit problematic. I think we saw that in May, and I guess, Lee, this particularly refers to the strategy thing, because I'm not sure anybody else tried that. I know Troy did some breakouts in some groups, but he did that live, and so that had a little better reception. So that's something that may need to be rethought, because I don't think the dynamics are going to change much between now and our next session, and especially if we keep getting this wider audience of people who have all these other multiplicity of commitments that may not work up. One thing that I know I'm guilty of, and some other people have done very well, and some other people are in the middle, is breaking up the asynchronous lectures into smaller bite-sized pieces. I'm the worst offender in that. I have one gigantic lecture. I do have instructions that tell them, look, there are built-in breakpoints, at X, Y, and Z, and I even throw up a slide that says, break, that you can, that you can use as a breakpoint, or you can just start and stop anywhere you want. I think people have enjoyed the stuff that, for instance, Femi did, in creating those mini lectures. So, I had one big giant lecture with multiple breaks in it. Femi had a dozen or whatever it was, mini lectures. I know Amy had, last time, well, this time too, broken it up. But then I think, Amy's lectures were broken up into maybe 45-minute blocks but Femi's were like broken down into like 20-minute blocks or something. And they found that more digestible. So that's just a comment, again, if your stuff is amenable to that. So, you know, for instance, and that's for the asynchronous part. For the synchronous part, you know, it's a different issue. You know, I couldn't see, for instance, Jonathan doing his case studies in, you know, 20-minute blocks or something, because, you know, it just would lose the whole ability to do that kind of interactive stuff. And then Bill's not on, but
Yeah,
I think,
he is. He joined.
oh, Bill, are you on?
He joined.
Okay, great. Perfect. Okay, because I for whatever reason, I don't see him on. Oh, there he is. Okay, great. He's there in San Francisco. Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. So, Bill, one of the comments with the legal is that the feedback was more visual aids to the module, or perhaps some pre-reading, or you know, so that they're not just listening to audio. I guess that didn't keep, although the subject matter was extremely well received. I think people needed something to look at, like the Golden Gate Bridge behind you. You know,
now, what they're wanting, Mike, which is something I've always planned to add and just hadn't done, but now I've got the impetus from this feedback, is they want slides for the rest of the course, because I've done the initial sections that were mostly like lecture, but there really wasn't something tangible like a textbook or slides. And
right.
So before the next session, I'll have the whole thing on slides. That gives me a chance to revamp stuff too.
Yeah, no, and you know, this is, you know, it worked extremely well in the live sessions, because, you know, everybody sat there in a group and it was a fireside chat, you know, kind of environment. But I guess, you know, unfortunately, or either fortunately or unfortunately, you know, this is this generation and everything else really are audio visual learners, and you know,
we learn from them.
Exactly, different level of presentation and sophistication. So, so that's one thing we can all keep in mind. Okay, is kind of pizzazzing up our stuff. I know this is supposed to just be an educational environment, and you don't have to have great graphics in the background to make your case. But the reality of it is, you know, 2020 or almost 2021, and Jordan's Library of Congress behind me now gives us a great.
That is plenty cool.
Okay, so those were the points that I had. So, Joanne, back to you, or anybody's comments on stuff.
I have one question to our UHCL instructors and Raymond. Have y'all gotten a feel yet for what the spring semester looks like for classes, whether they'll continue the bimodal or try and go back face-to-face, or have y'all gotten any scuttlebutt on what's going to happen there? I'm just trying to get an idea.
Right now, we're going to stay where we are unless and until we hear. So we're planning online unless otherwise.
Yeah, the spring 21 schedule is built with the same 4 modalities we use for the fall.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
we're not anticipating a change.
So we're safe to assume that our February session will probably be online. Okay, I just wanted to double check that.
Also, online sessions have been this last online session has been very popular. We have many participants then in our face-to-face. So that's something we need to consider.
Right.
But just so you guys know, I don't know if you knew, I'm sorry, Dr. Bungo, that we had a physician from Arizona participating in the last session.
Yeah.
I think the bigger issue though is for February is because at least from what I'm reading from some of their feedback is some of them prefer asynchronous online rather than synchronous. So I think the bigger issue, especially if we want to be uniform for February, should be, do we all want to go asynchronous and have pre-recorded lectures, or do people want to try synchronous online?
Or do we split the two pieces apart?
You mean for
What do you mean, Dr. Volker?
Well, we had the synchronous online, and then Femi's point that we had a lot that were trying to use the asynchronous online. So what we did this time is we had them blended together. Femi's point is that there may be enough with the asynchronous online that we just switch to that completely. And then I offer a third alternative, which is that, consider splitting the two apart and running them as separate sessions.
Yeah, that's something we should think about.
We did talk about that.
Yeah, an example would be, let's just say, 25% of our curriculum is synchronous and 75% is asynchronous. We would still offer the program over a 4-week period, but we might, for instance, put the 25% synchronous all in the same week. Rearrange our modules or whatever, put it all in the same week. So for those people who, are still trying to do the course while they're living the rest of their life or working, could take the time off, the vacation time or educational time or whatever, for a week instead of 4 weeks, which is, obviously, not very, not possible in a lot of situations, and still get everything the same. So yeah, let's think about that.
Is that what Troy was saying, though? Troy, is that the same thing?
No, it's
No,
not
I think
the same thing.
that's a different path, but it makes sense.
Oh, okay.
But it's a hybrid. It was a
Yeah.
takeoff a little bit on what Troy was saying. That it's possible, a hybrid is also something to consider.
Because that's kind of keeping what we did this time, but rearranging it so that all of the synchronous was put together so people could block out their work schedules.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's an interesting way of doing it too.
And the other thing that we had talked about before that I think is interesting as well is, do we offer for the synchronous either at the same time or in a separate offering? Do you offer it during the day or in the evenings? Because I think there's a certain amount of people that, if we're doing, let's say, on average 3 hours of synchronous a day, let's just say, hypothetically, you could do that 9 to 12, but you could also do it 6 to 9 at night. And for different groups of people, I think it makes those times better or worse.
Yes.
I did poll the last session, and I asked that question, and overwhelming, I'll say over about 75% preferred to have the synchronous during the day, the 9 to 3. That's probably because most of them were residents, and that's the block of time they had put aside anyway.
Yes. And the February session is the session where we will get the largest number of medical students.
Mm-hmm.
And they will actually take this course as an elective. So they will not have other commitments during that time. So I suspect that at least for February, we should be thinking again of the daytime business. But I think this concept of offering it perhaps evenings fits to the other introduction that I made, opening this up more to faculty and attending physicians, because that's definitely going to work with the evenings are definitely going to work better with their schedule.
Yeah. And if we arrange it, because if let's say we're 75% asynchronous, you could say Tuesday, almost like we do with the attending course now, Tuesdays, Thursdays for the month from 5 to 8 or whatever we choose is going to be your synchronous time. And then it's not a huge demand on that.
Right.
Well, the other question I have is this. Is it time for us to have separate programs, one for students and house staff, and the other one for practicing physicians?
Well, we already do. We just don't have a program.
I know we did it for Memorial, Herman, and it was only for their physicians. But could we do the same thing but open it up to physicians at large, so to speak? Or from
Raymond, I would love to do that, and I would like to say yes. So now my question is not for me, but is going to be for you, is what's the financial model for that? Because, you know, when we do it for the residents and the students, we charge them, you know, a pittance of a tuition because, you know, the medical school, you know, subsidizes that, and Memorial Hermann subsidizes that. When we did it for the Memorial Hermann physicians, of course, the hospital paid us as opposed to each individual physician at that time. Although we did have add-ons. I mean, you know, we, but basically, you know, we had a great business model in that, you know, Memorial Hermann guaranteed us the 10 physicians that was going to cover our costs. And then whoever else joined was, you know, the gravy on top of it. So, you know, I'm ready to say yes to that. But I think we, you know, I don't know what the financial model is. So, you know,
we will have to put the pen on paper and take a look at what would be an acceptable tuition charge and what would our break-even point would be.
And how to market it.
We go with it,
I think PR in the TMC, but I mean, you can do it in the wide, I mean, it's all online now with COVID and people are getting used to that. I mean, you can market it across anywhere really. So if you need 10 people, you could probably, I think if you offered it once a year, at least you could probably get the 10, but it depends what your costs are, what your break even.
Right. Yeah, marketing should be pretty easy because we could probably get Memorial Hermann to send out a blast email to all their medical staffs at all their institutions, you know, not just TMC, but, you know, their hospitals all around the city. If we could convince HCA to do the same, I guess Nesbitt is not there anymore, right? He has
retired,
which, you know, we could approach.
UT positions.
Right. It's easy for us to send out the UT blast emails. I don't know whether Baylor would do the same because
Methodist.
Because UT.
I mean, Methodist, we have some people who could ask at Methodist.
Yeah.
Teaching the class.
Yeah. You know, maybe Pam can twist some arms there at Methodist, you know, and maybe Dr. Phillips, you know, might do it for us. Else.
You'll have high hopes for me.
Yeah.
But you always deliver, Pam.
I don't know about that one.
Hey, I do have one question going back to the learning, the model of the classes.
I don't want to interrupt you, but before we move on, do we want to do something about it and explore the possibilities?
Well, one comment I would have, just knowing doctors and their thing, is at least the initial offering, if we did that, I think I would try to say, you know, for doctors who are 1 to 5 years out in practice or something, and try to just market that segment. Because if you get it too varied, while we've had that variation in the, you know, in the face-to-face things, and you can use somebody's expertise to teach the others and everyone feels connected. But online, I think, you know, if we're not careful, we're going to have some that say, oh, that was way too basic. And some say that was just too hard for me. And if you've been out in practice 10 years, you're going to know a lot more than the 1 or 2 year guys.
You'll have more war stories.
I'll also add a couple of things. So CME is important. And I can't remember, did Herman have CME for this?
Yes.
Having CME and allowing doctors to use their CME money, especially academic doctors, makes it a much easier financial decision for them.
Okay, so maybe Joanne and I could get together later.
Yeah, that's what I was going to suggest. I didn't mean that we needed to stop this. I just think it's obviously it's important, and I think it's something we need to talk about in a separate scenario and then come back and plan it better.
And solicit input from everybody in the group.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely. Bill, did you have something to add to that?
I did in the first part with Michael. No, I like the idea of the practice physicians, and from my perspective, the more Q&A that I can develop in whatever environment, whether it's virtual or it's face-to-face, the more stimulating I think it is for everyone, and certainly the better I like it. And the doctors that were already out in practice that were doing the CME, when we met in that 20-foot ceiling conference room at Memorial Hermann, they were probably the most stimulating group that I've had in all of these. So I would really encourage trying to develop that, as you were discussing, Joanne, with you and Raymond, and then solicit input from the rest of the group.
Yeah.
I think everybody
Absolutely.
will have input on that. And I'm sure that my experience with it was very comparable to others.
Well, I have heard several of you say that they are some of the best students, the most attentive and the most eager students that y'all have taught.
Yeah, no, there's no question about that. The medical students are the toughest audience, okay, because they're basically, they've gone to college and now they've gone through the first part of medical school, and they don't always connect the dots to see the relevance. They're learning biochemistry in the first year of medical school and have no idea how that's going to relate to taking care of patients, 10 years down the line. So they're the toughest audience, with the residents, of course, being second. And the attending physicians usually, they've had a little experience and
they've been to a few staff meetings.
Exactly. There you go. That's right.
That separates the
Yep.
youthful from the more seasoned.
Absolutely. And Pam's point is well taken. I don't know whether we say the first 5 years or the first 10 years or whatever, or say something like, the first 5 years, or if you're taking on a new administrative role in your practice or your hospital or whatever, give some kind of caveat. But I would agree there too, to target. And I think natural selection will do that anyway. If you look at the people who voluntarily signed up for the physician's course when we gave the physician's course, they kind of were those people anyway.
Yep.
We didn't have too many senior people. The first time when we did the course back at, if you remember that 6th floor conference room, the Cullen conference room at Memorial Hermann, that nice fancy boardroom.
Mm-hmm.
Memorial Hermann did send us some senior physicians because they wanted to see what the course was like. They wanted somebody that could come back and evaluate it, for their leadership. And although those people, enjoyed the course and everything, I don't think they got a lot out of it in terms of, there were a couple of people there who were, almost C-suite type of people already. So.
Can I ask one question about my course? So when I looked at the evaluations of it, the comments were interesting. I had about maybe 8 students who were in the synchronous part of my course, which is the whole course. And what they said is the amount of preparation time and the fact that I said I would cold call people might have kept a lot of people away to not show up to it because they either hadn't done the reading or hadn't spent that much time. And I'm looking for advice on how to deal with that. I can just say, make sure you read the cases and come ready to discuss and not be so dogmatic on how much preparation time you need. But I just, participation is important there. And 7 people, even compared to some of the other synchronous courses, seem to be like a low number.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it did scare them away a little bit with, you need to spend 2 hours per case, and here are 4 cases that we're going to talk about before you even come to the lecture. So I'd leave the time commitment off of it, and make it nebulous and say, look, read and prepare these cases. Don't read these cases, but, think about them ahead of time, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And not really specify, you ought to be spending 2 hours on it. I know you were trying to give them some type of parameter so that they, wouldn't block out 10 minutes to read this case and then than show up cold. But I guess the bottom line is, would you rather have somebody show up having read the case in 10 minutes and done no preparation, or have that person not show up at all? And based on how you answer that question, I guess.
Well, yeah, I think it's one of those things when it's totally synchronous, there's no option for them almost to not show up. But when it's online, it's easy for them to say, I'm just going to miss this and look at the video and not participate. And so yeah, that's what I was planning on doing, but I just wanted to get feedback and see.
And speaking of looking at the video, that reminds me of something else. You know, we had talked prior to the August session about using Blackboard Collaborate for all the videos. And then we, learned of some limitations. And so we switched, or we didn't switch, but we gave people the option once again to use Zoom or WebEx or, whatever other platform. What I'd like everybody to do is once again rethink whether you can use Blackboard, or maybe Femi can teach us a little bit more about Echo 360 or whatever. But it was nice. Blackboard has that advantage that, of course, the video is stored within the system. They don't have to access a third party like WebEx or like YouTube rather. But it also does it automatically. So you don't have to, you still have to hit the record button, but you don't have to then, convert your video, upload it to YouTube, all of which, takes hours. And some people wanted a little bit more instant gratification and, maybe couldn't miss, they couldn't attend the synchronous session, but were ready to watch it asynchronously, immediately afterwards. And of course, it wasn't available in many cases till the next day, or in some cases where we had some glitches, wasn't available for 2 days. And then of course that became problematic. So, I think WebEx and Zoom are much better platforms than Blackboard Collaborate, but the fact of the matter is, Blackboard Collaborate has a lot of advantages. So if you can, just by nature of it being inherent to the same system. So let's take a look at that again.
How many, in reality, how many people, now I know Dr. Rogg, you probably are one of the only folks that will definitely need, well, maybe not, something like Zoom or WebEx, because you've got a lot of video going at the same time.
As long as I can share my screen, that's all I need.
But in reality, I think that's what scared some people off of Collaborate. They were afraid that that they wouldn't be able to get video for that many people. And in reality, it was not, a lot of students didn't even I'm calling them students, learners didn't even have their video on. And if they're instructed not to turn on the video, I think that we could use Collaborate more than we thought we could, but that's I guess a question for the instructors. What you guys feel most comfortable with.
Yeah, I know. I asked, in my instructions for logging in, I used Blackboard again this time. And in my instructions, I specifically asked that they join by video, by audio video, not just by audio. And, of course, only half of them attend the session anyway to begin with. And then I think there were, of the ones that did attend, I think there were only 1 or 2 that joined with video. The rest of them still didn't. And then, of course, immediately as soon as they saw that their colleagues weren't joining by video, they switched the video off. And at that point, it wasn't worth my getting anybody to turn on again. But yeah, I mean, we do need to think of a way. I think some people really couldn't join by video. They may have called in from a phone or something like that. or from a computer that wasn't theirs, so it didn't have a camera. They were on the wards or, in the clinic or something like that, where they could establish the connection, but that particular hardware setup didn't have a video camera. So that was part of the issue. But I'm sure there were other people who were doing it on their laptop who probably could have done it and chose not to.
Dr. Ayati?
Here's my feedback from my regular class that I'm teaching this semester, that I think if we're going to have synchronous class, then it's synchronous. And if we're going to have async, then it's async. My class that I'm teaching this semester has 40 students in it. It's a synchronous class. And the expectations I make at the beginning of the semester, you're expected to attend between Tuesday, 7 o'clock on Tuesday. So out of my 40 students, honestly, when I don't have students, I have 36. At least 38 or 40 of them show up every single week, because that's the expectations, and because I incentivize them to come to class. So, and the reason I want them to come to class is because we have group projects, group activities in class. So most of the work is read and done before coming to class, but they do the applications in class. And I say this to say is, I don't want a class that's half of my class show up where I'm doing these applications and they're learning the stuff that the other class think they're gonna do it on their own. So we either make it synchronous, I think is my opinion, or it's async and nobody shows up. And then in my class, even though I use Zoom, and I do tell them, I'd like to see your face, but it's not, you don't have to. Out of 40 students, maybe 10 of them turn on their cameras, and the same 10 people consistently turn on their cameras, and that's fine. The others just don't. And some of them, when they want to talk to me, they turn on their cameras and then they turn it off. But that's fine. But so we've created that community. But I really think the class can't be either. Like, you can't really say whoever shows up for async, for synchronous come, and then you do some things and some people don't come for that and watch it. So if it's going to be async, then let's just have it async and do the activities such that they can do it on their time. So I would have taught this group synchronously. I was actually looking forward to it, but because of Hurricane whoever, I had to pull it up all async at the last minute. That weekend was so horrible, trying to record all those things. But what I did was just give them the activities that would make them go and do some sort of discussion board activity, in which they're not all there at the same time, but they can read what each other's commenting on the prompts that I put up, which would have been a group activity in class if we had met synchronously. So that's the way I organized it. But they could read their stuff. And then I went in there a couple of times to kind of give a feedback. That's the best we could do for me in the asynchronous environment. So I think we really should consider that if you're going to have the class synchronously, let's have it synchronously. And if we're going to have it asynchronously, let's not try to have half and half. That's my opinion.
You brought up a good point, which is something I was going to get to eventually. And that's my concern, and I know it's a concern of several of you, and I've just read that to go async makes it even harder to have any sort of community and interactivity. But that might be a fallacy. It may just be my perception, and maybe the way you guys are doing async still lends itself to group work and to interactivity, because I believe that's the interactivity with your classmates. I think is the piece that is sorely lacking with our online sessions. And however we need to make that happen, I think that's something we should strive to do a better job of for February. And if that means, I don't know how to make that happen, but I believe they would get more value from the program if they could talk to each other.
I think that for February with medical students, especially where they're going to have the time, we should And we have enough people who've signed up for the course that we should just say, let's set the schedule now. Let's know when the synchronous sessions are and say, even if we do it 75% asynchronous, for the February session, you are required to be at all of the synchronous sessions if you sign up for this class. I think we have enough interest, and between medical students and residents that have requested electives, we should be able to facilitate that, especially if we can put out those dates way far in advance and say, here, you know, it's these days. So if you're clinical, work your schedule around it, or sign up for the class in May, or request elective time so that you can attend the synchronous parts of the class.
You have a question, Dr.
I
Volker?
would support that. I am going to have to jump off to get to my 12 o'clock, but while we're talking, I've given a lot of thought to how to redesign my course content to meet that requirement, and I think I can do that. I'll follow up with you, Raymond, on kind of my thoughts, and I'll be ready to go for February. Y'all have a great morning. Thanks for all your help and your feedback.
Thanks.
Thank you,
Good
Lee.
luck.
Thanks
Good
for
luck.
taking the time.
Yeah,
So-
my pleasure.
Also, you know, if we have them do group interactions, we all set up different groups and things. You know, if we could, and you know, different people are available at night or available during the daytime, that type of thing. If we all decided on what would be a good group size for each of us, then, you know, maybe we could just pre-design some smaller groups. And then that way they're not always shuffling, finding out when we can meet or coordinate. And that might be helpful.
So I have a couple thoughts there. I want to pull together some things to point out. The last thought there, I think there's an interesting idea of something like figuring out their schedules at the beginning, and then having static groups that actually run through all of the different sections. So if you want to have them in groups of 4, groups of 5, groups of 6, that way when Jordan has them, he doesn't have to break them up into groups. Femi has them, doesn't have to break. They have their group, and that group tracks them all the way through. And the group is built around a similarity in work schedules. That might actually facilitate both synchronous and asynchronous interactivity, because they, you know, the people who have really kind of odd shifts are put together so that they can not be conflicting with somebody who's got a, you know, that actually might work really, really well. I really like the idea of being very, if we're going to keep doing the blended sort of model we did this time, I think it's a really good idea to be very clear up front that these are the sessions that really need synchronous time. So you really need to make sure these days are free. I think setting that expectation up front works well. And I'd also, I see, you know, Femi's point that I think there is possibly an asynchronous client base here that probably needs a different thing. I will point out though that if we all go async and all start doing discussion boards, in our not this session, but in the session we did prior to this, the heavy use of discussion board had a lot of very negative feedback in that group's wrap up. And I think the challenge is, it's not, I'm kind of torn on what I think about discussion boards in online asynchronous environments. But one of the things that I see that's unique to this situation is it is a 4-week pretty intensive. And so if every single day you have a new discussion board that you have to act on, and you have to follow the discussion board from 2 days prior, and you have to be responding to feedback from the instructor 4 days prior, you gradually start creating this avalanche of posts that you have to keep track of. And I don't mean for us, I mean that from the student's perspective is that by the end of the first week, they've got 5 different sets of discussion boards they have to be following. And that can be overwhelming. I think in a blended format where some people are doing async and some people aren't, then it's only 1 or 2 discussions you're following a week, and it's a little bit more digestible, maybe.
Yeah, no, I would second that too. I think one of the things all of us have to realize that, you know, if your module, you know, is scheduled to run, you know, Monday and Tuesday of week 2, then the students should be working on your module on Monday and Tuesday of week 2, not working on somebody else's module, and they shouldn't be working on your module on Thursday and Friday of that week. You know, that's basically what happened in the real-time sessions when we were doing it in the classroom. And I think we have to be aware of that as well. So there's nothing wrong with a pre-read or you know, work to do before they come into class. But, it should be able to be done, the night before your class rather than the week before. And it should be finished, the evening after your class, since they have to prepare for the next one. So those are fair comments.
I think the class, especially in February, is going to be heavily loaded towards those who are dedicated, that have their time dedicated during the day.
Yes.
And I think through the discussion we've set up, if we set up the expectation that this is when you will be required to be online, the 3 or 4 attending physicians that are thinking about doing it will either change their minds or they'll make arrangements to be there. And I think that goes back to, I think we need to seriously talk about making that alternative program available to attending physicians, which we'll talk later about. Okay. So did we,
Okay, we haven't heard
what
a
did we
lot
decide?
from Jordan or anything more from Pam either. Anything?
No, I agree that if it is financially possible, we should separate the residents and students away from the practicing physicians. I know that that's how the program started out, and as an instructor, that served as a framework for me to my content design and also my delivery as well. So if it is financially possible, I would strongly vote for that. Other than that, I mean, I'm good to go for February. If we are going to do a 75-25 async and sync for February, maybe we should have a poll about, whose content absolutely needs to be synchronous, and whose can, for lack of better words, get away with, please forgive me for that, being async. And yeah, I mean, that's what I have to contribute.
Yeah, my thing was to, I think that we're on a good path. I think, kudos to Joanne and I know she pushed me and probably some of the other of us to, make things a little bit more standardized. And I think you did a good job. I'd say, Joanne, if you want to take a look at it, take a look at it before we start prepping our courses, and then kind of allow us to prep them then, within that. And that will, kind of mock up a framework. Maybe you just put make a module in there that just, doesn't have anything, but just say, this is where everything should go and look at. And that way we can kind of track that. I think that would be helpful.
Okay. Dr. Ayati, you are, if I understand correctly, you would prefer, you feel that we should either go 100% sync or 100% async. Did I understand that correctly?
Well, either that, or if I have a synchronous session, I don't want to make it optional. Like if 25% of my class time is synchronous, I don't want to make it optional. I don't want half of them to show up and the other half to not. I want everybody to be there for the same, as humanly possible. But it's not like, oh, I'll just watch the video. So my synchronous portion is there for everybody.
Got it. And I think that's partly our fault for the way we marketed the last couple of sessions, that, oh, you don't have to be, what if I can't be there? Well, you don't have to because it'll be recorded. And we kind of downplayed, I think, at least I did, downplayed the importance of being there for the synchronous. But on the other side, if we have it organized so that most of the sync is within a time frame, the first week or within certain time frames, and they know that ahead of time, then we can make it a requirement that they attend synchronously.
Right.
Well, and I think the previous session was unique because we were in the midst of, understanding how to work with COVID, and nobody had good schedules. People were being pulled for ER duty, things like that. So I think
Yep.
it was a more disruptive on their side too.
True. Yeah. Okay. Well, it's 12 o'clock, so 12:01. Thank you. Is there anything else we need to address? I have a bunch of stuff that I'm going to recap and send out to you guys. Do you think we need to set another meeting up to do a little more planning on the specifically the content, not content, but the delivery? Or do you guys want to just do that amongst yourselves?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we ought to set up another meeting after we think about some of these things, whether, you and Raymond get together about the finances of a separate course. And, we have till February, so, another
Right.
meeting in a month or something like that. I mean, it doesn't
Right.
have to be tomorrow. But I think, a meeting in October, late October or something, or early November would be useful.
What's better for you guys, late October or early November?
Have it after the election so we have something else to complain about.
We could be suicidal, Bill.
Well, then we'd have the first Zoom suicides.
Well,
Oh, Lord.
Bill, I would love to hear your complaints after the election.
Right. and keep to yourself until the election.
Well, I want to say something about this program. I think it is very good for us to take a look at the responses we're getting from the participants and to make the appropriate adjustments. However, we are giving them a certificate in healthcare administration. It is imperative for us to maintain certain standards. We need to accommodate them as much as we can. However, there are certain things that they need to get so that they can be worthy of that certificate. And I want to make sure that we all are in agreement with that, because if they're going to get certificate by us, they're going to meet certain standards.
Fair enough.
Yeah. And we're all in agreement. That's all I have to say.
Okay. And we will need to find a replacement for Alex, or expand or do something else in this interim period too. So.
Okay.
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 And if anyone has complaints, either that we gave them too much time or too little time, let us know. And
Yeah, contact Dr. Bunga.
And Joanne. I call her at home.
That's where I'm at.
So am I. Okay, for the first time, I went to U of H Clear Lake, spent a couple of hours. It's been strange.
I bet.
I'm glad I did. Okay.
All right. Well, I'll be in touch with all of you. I'll try and set something up. I don't want to get too close to Thanksgiving, Bill. People are going to be mentally checked out.
Yep, you got some good time in between. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what makes you think that the election will be decided on election day anyway.
Well, bye.
I'm saving all that for after the election.
Bye. Thank you guys for coming.
Bye.
thanks again for your participation.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.